I was sitting at my parents' dining table when my 9-year-old daughter slipped a piece of paper into my hand. The monthly family dinner was in full swing. Mom was beaming as she served her famous pot roast, the one Shed made every third Sunday for as long as I could remember. Dad stood at the head of the table, wine glass raised, starting another toast about family unity and staying strong together. My sister Diane barely looked up from her phone, scrolling through something that held her attention more than Dad's speech. Everything seemed normal, everything seemed fine. Then I unfolded that note under the table where no one could see. 2 words in my daughter Emma's shaky handwriting: "Call 911." I looked at her. Her face was pale, drained of color. Her eyes were wide with a fear I'd never seen before. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears, but I kept my expression neutral. I didn't panic. I couldn't panic. Instead, I did what my years as an ER nurse had trained me to do. I stayed calm and I observed. I set down my fork carefully, making sure my hand didn't shake. Around the table, everyone continued as if nothing had happened. Dad finished his toast with something about honoring our commitments and paying what we owe. Mom nodded enthusiastically, raising her own glass. Diane finally looked up from her phone long enough to take a sip of wine. And then there was Travis, my brother-in-law, sitting across from me next to Diane. Had been unusually quiet all evening, which it attributed to stress. Had lost his job 3 months ago, and I knew money was tight for them. But now I looked at him more carefully. Really looked at him. His jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the comfortable temperature in the house. His eyes kept darting around the table, never settling on anyone for more than a second. And his right hand was under the table, gripping something. I couldn't see what, but his knuckles were white with the force of his grip. My blood ran cold. I reached over and gently touched Emma's shoulder. "Sweetie, do you need to use the bathroom?" I asked, keeping my voice light and casual. Emma nodded, her movement so slight I almost missed it. "Excuse us," I said to the table, pushing back my chair. "Emma's not feeling well. Just need to check on her." Mom looked concerned. "Oh no, is it her stomach? I have ginger ale in the fridge." "Well, be right back," I said, helping Emma up. My daughter's hand was ice cold in mine. We walked down the hallway to the bathroom, and the moment I closed the door behind us, Emma burst into tears. I knelt down, pulling her close, and whispered, "Tell me what happened. Tell me everything." Through her sobs, the story came out. Shed ridden over with Diane and Travis because I'd been running late from work. In the car, Shed heard them arguing. Emma had been in the back seat with her headphones on, but Shed taken them off when their voices got loud. Travis had said something that made her blood run cold. "I'm ending it all tonight. They'll all pay for what they did to me." Then, when they'd arrived at Grandma and Grandpa's house, Emma had seen Travis put something in his jacket pocket. Something black and metallic that looked like a gun. I felt my stomach drop, but I forced myself to think clearly. Travis had always been a bit intense, a bit volatile, but I'd never thought of him as dangerous. Then again, I remembered the coffee shop incident from last week. Dad had confronted Travis about the $15,000 my parents had lent them, money that was supposed to have been paid back 2 months ago. According to Mom, who'd heard it from a friend who'd been there. Travis had slammed his fist on the table and stormed out, shouting something about being treated like garbage. I pulled back to look at Emma. "You did exactly the right thing telling me, baby. You're so brave. Now I need you to stay in here, okay? Lock the door after I leave. Don't open it for anyone except me. Can you do that?" Emma nodded, wiping her eyes. "Are we in danger, Mom?" I wanted to lie, to tell her everything was fine. But I'd always been honest with my daughter. "I don't know yet. But I'm going to make sure we're all safe, I promise." I left her in the bathroom and heard the lock click behind me. Then I stood in the hallway for a moment, my mind racing through scenarios. I could call the police right now, but if Travis really was armed and planning something, a police presence might trigger him. It could turn a tense situation into a deadly one. I needed to verify what Emma saw without alerting Travis that I knew. I also needed to get everyone out of that dining room. When I returned to the table, I watched Travis even more carefully. Head moved his chair back slightly, and I could see the outline of something bulky in his jacket pocket. My medical training kicked in, cataloging details. Elevated heart rate based on the pulse visible in his neck, shallow breathing, dilated pupils, classic fight-or-flight response. He was terrified. And terrified people with weapons were unpredictable. "Is Emma all right?" Mom asked. "Just a little car sick," I said, sitting back down. "She's resting in the bathroom." Dad continued talking about some news story, but I noticed he kept glancing at Travis too. Did he sense the tension? Travis' hand was still under the table, and I needed to know what he was holding. I accidentally dropped my napkin and bent down to retrieve it. Under the table, I saw it clearly. Travis' hand wrapped around the handle of a large kitchen knife. Not a gun then, but still a weapon. Still dangerous. I sat back up, my heart hammering. The knife was from Mom's butcher block set. He must have grabbed it when Head offered to help her in the kitchen earlier. This was planned. Head come here tonight with intentions. And they weren't good. I needed to create a reason for people to leave without causing alarm. But before I could formulate a plan, Mom stood up with a bright smile that seemed almost manic. "I almost forgot. I made a special dessert tonight. My famous 7-layer chocolate cake. It took me all day, and I insist everyone stays to try it. This family time is so precious, and we're going to make the most of it." I watched in growing horror as Mom disappeared into the kitchen and returned with an elaborate chocolate cake, layers visible through the glass serving dish. She set it down in the center of the table with a flourish that seemed exaggerated, even for her. "Nobody leaves until we've had dessert and really talked," she announced, her voice taking on a strange edge. "This family has been falling apart, and I won't have it. We're going to sit here and work through our problems like adults." I glanced at the front hallway. The key that usually hung on the hook by the door was missing. "Mom," I said carefully, "did you move the door key?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I put all the keys away. Every door in this house is locked. We're not leaving until we've had a real conversation about what's been happening to this family." Dad shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Linda, that's a bit extreme, don't you think?" "Extreme." Mom's voice rose slightly. "What's extreme is watching my family crumble and doing nothing about it. Diane and Travis are struggling. You girls barely call anymore. When was the last time we all sat down together without someone checking their phone or making excuses to leave early? We're staying right here, at this table, until we remember how to be a family again." I felt the room closing in. Travis' agitation was increasing. I could see it in the way his free hand clenched and unclenched on the table, in the sweat now running down his temple. Diane had gone very still beside him, her phone forgotten in her lap. She kept glancing at Travis with an expression I finally recognized. Fear. She knew. Diane knew her husband was dangerous tonight, and she was terrified. My phone was in my pocket. Under the table, I pulled it out and quickly typed a text to 911. "Armed individual, at 847 Maple Street. Family in danger. Multiple people, please come quietly. Do not use sirens." I hit send and immediately deleted the message thread. If anyone checked my phone, they'd see nothing. Now I just had to keep everyone calm until help arrived. "Mom, I really think we should move to the backyard," I suggested, trying to sound casual. "It's such a beautiful evening. We could have dessert on the patio, enjoy the fresh air." "No," Mom said firmly. "We're staying right here. I've already decided." I tried again. "But Emma's not feeling well. Some fresh air might help her stomach." "Emma can join us when she's ready," Mom said, cutting the cake with sharp, precise movements. "Right now, we're going to talk. Travis, why don't you tell everyone about the job interviews you've been going to?" Travis' face went red. "I don't want to talk about that. Nonsense. We're family. We support each other." "Robert, didn't you say you had some connections who might be able to help Travis find work?" Dad cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. "Well, yes, I mentioned to a few people at the VA that he was looking, but these things take time. Time." Travis' voice was bitter. "Time. That's what everyone keeps saying. Give it time. Be patient. But time doesn't pay bills, does it? Time doesn't feed your family or keep a roof over your head. We gave you money," Dad said. And I wanted to shout at him to stop talking. $15,000, Travis. That was supposed to help with time. Travis stood up so abruptly his chair scraped against the floor. I knew it. I knew this is what this dinner was really about. You want your money back. You want to humiliate me in front of everyone. Sit down, Dad said, his voice taking on the authoritative tone Head used when Diane and I were teenagers. We're not doing this. You're not doing this? You invited me here to throw my failures in my face. I saw Travis' hand move toward his jacket pocket, and I knew I had to act. I grabbed the water pitcher from the table, and in one swift motion, pretended to lose my grip. This is exactly the kind of paranoid nonsense that's tearing this family apart. I turned to Diane and Travis, who were both standing frozen by their chairs. I'm going to check on Emma, I said. Why don't you two step outside for some air? The doors are locked, Diane said quietly. Remember, of course, the keys. Mom had hidden them, and I had no idea where. I went to help Mom clean up in the kitchen, hoping to search for the keys while keeping her distracted. Dad was trying to explain the danger, but Mom was in complete denial. You're overreacting, she insisted, scrubbing at the tablecloth with excessive force. Travis is just stressed. We all say things we don't mean when we're stressed. This is exactly why I locked the doors. If we'd all just sit down and talk like rational adults, without running away from our problems, everything would be fine. Linda, listen to me, Dad said. This isn't about talking. The man has a knife. A knife? For cutting cake. You're seeing threats where there aren't any. I opened drawers as subtly as I could, looking for keys. Nothing. I checked the hooks near the phone, the basket where Mom usually kept mail. Still nothing. Mom, where did you put the keys? I asked. She looked at me with an expression that was almost childlike in its stubbornness. Somewhere safe. Somewhere none of you can find them until we've finished our family meeting. Mom, this isn't a game. People could get hurt. The only thing getting hurt is this family's bond. And I'm the only one who seems to care enough to do something about it. I saw it then, the wildness in her eyes, the way her hands shook as she folded the wet towels. This wasn't just stubbornness. Something was wrong with my mother. Dad saw it too. Linda, when did you last take your medication? He asked gently. Mom's face flushed. I don't need those pills. They make me feel foggy. I stopped taking them 3 weeks ago, and I've been thinking more clearly than I have in years. Clear enough to see that this family is dying and someone needs to save it. 3 weeks. She'd been off her anxiety medication for 3 weeks, and none of us had noticed. Sweetheart, you need those medications, Dad said. They help you. Without them, your thoughts get confused, and you can't see things clearly. Don't patronize me, Robert, Mom snapped. I see everything very clearly. I see a son-in-law who's struggling and a husband who would rather judge him than help him. I see daughters who are too busy with their own lives to notice their mother falling apart. Well, not anymore. Tonight, we're going to fix this family if it kills me. The words hung in the air. If it kills me. Before anyone could respond, we heard it. A sound that made my blood turn to ice. The sharp crack of a gunshot from the dining room. I ran. Dad was right behind me, and I heard Mom screaming something, but the words didn't register. All I could think was, Emma. Please let Emma still be safe in the bathroom. The scene in the dining room stopped me in my tracks. Travis was standing with his back against the wall, the knife he'd seen earlier now on the floor at his feet. But he wasn't unarmed. In his shaking hands was a black pistol, pointed at the floor, and across from him, also armed, was Dad. My father held his own gun, the one I knew he always carried, an old habit from his military days, a habit I'd always found unnecessary until this very moment. There was a fresh bullet hole in the ceiling, plaster dust still drifting down like snow. Diane was pressed against the far wall, crying. Travis' gun was pointed down, but Dad's was aimed squarely at my brother-in-law's chest. Put it down, son, Dad said, his voice steady despite the trembling I could see in his arms. Just put the gun down, and we can talk about this. Talk. Travis laughed, a sound with no humor in it. Now you want to talk? After treating me like garbage for 2 years? After making it clear I'm not good enough for your precious daughter? That's not true, Dad said. It's not? Really? Then why did you tell Diane she was making a mistake marrying me? Why did you offer to pay for the wedding only if we signed a prenup? Why do you look at me like I'm dirt every time I walk into this house? I hadn't known any of that. I glanced at Diane, whose face confirmed every word. Travis, please? Diane sobbed. Please put the gun down. I brought the money, Travis said, his voice breaking. He gestured with his free hand toward his jacket. The full 15,000. I sold my car. I sold my golf clubs. My watch. Everything I had of value. I was going to give it all back tonight until you were done. Diane and I are getting divorced. I was going to walk away with whatever dignity I had left. Then why the gun? I heard myself ask. Travis looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes that made my heart hurt. Not malice. Just pain and desperation and shame so deep it had eaten away at who he used to be. Because I'm a coward, he said simply. I couldn't face walking in here without feeling like I had some kind of power, some kind of control. I wasn't going to use it. I just needed to feel brave enough to look your father in the eye and tell him, I'm not nothing. I'm not garbage, Travis said, his voice breaking. He gestured with his free hand toward his jacket. The full 15,000. I sold my car. I sold my golf clubs, my watch, everything I had of value. I was going to give it all back tonight until you were done. Diane and I are getting divorced. I was going to walk away with whatever dignity I had left. Then why the gun? I heard myself ask. Travis looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes that made my heart hurt. Not malice. Just pain and desperation and shame so deep it had eaten away at who he used to be. Because I'm a coward, he said simply. I couldn't face walking in here without feeling like I had some kind of power, some kind of control. I wasn't going to use it. I just needed to feel brave enough to look your father in the eye and tell him, I'm not nothing. I'm not garbage. Then we're all going to sit down and breathe and figure this out like the adults we are. Can you do that for me? Travis' hand shook violently. I just wanted him to respect me. Just once. I wanted to feel like I mattered. You do matter, I said. And what you're feeling right now, that shame and anger and hurt, it's real and valid. But this isn't the way. You know it's not. I don't know anything anymore. Diane moved then, slowly approaching her husband. Dad tensed, but I held up my hand to stop him from interfering. Diane walked right up to Travis and gently put her hand over the gun. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I should have stood up for you. I should have told my father to stop treating you like you weren't good enough. I should have chosen you over their approval, but I was too weak, and I let them make you feel small. That's on me, Travis. Not you. Travis' face crumpled. Tears ran down his cheeks. I'm so tired, Di. I'm so tired of feeling like a failure. I know you are. Give me the gun, baby. Please. Let's just end this. For a moment, everything hung in balance. I could hear my own heartbeat, could feel the tension vibrating in the air like a living thing. Travis looked at his wife, at the gun, at my father still holding his weapon ready. Then, slowly, Travis began to lower his arm. That's when we heard it. Sirens, multiple police cars getting closer. Travis' eyes went wide with panic. You called the cops? You called the cops on me. To protect everyone. I said quickly. Please, Travis, put the gun down before they get here. Don't let this get worse. But Travis wasn't listening anymore. His face had gone from despair to terror to rage in seconds. You set me up. This whole thing was a setup to make me look like a monster. Nobody set you up, I said. But he was backing away from Diane now, raising the gun again. Travis, don't! Diane screamed. The sirens were right outside now. I could see the flash of red and blue lights through the front window. Dad still had his gun aimed at Travis, his finger on the trigger. One wrong move, one moment of panic, and someone was going to die in my parents' dining room. Then a voice came through a loudspeaker outside. This is the police. We have the house surrounded. Come out with your hands up. And my mother, who had been silent through all of this, suddenly started laughing, not a normal laugh. A high, hysterical sound that made everyone turn to look at her. This is perfect, she said, still laughing. This is exactly what I wanted. What are you talking about, Linda? Dad demanded, still keeping his gun trained on Travis. Mom's laughter dissolved into something that sounded like sobbing, but her face was strange, almost gleeful. I called Travis 2 days ago. I told him to bring a weapon tonight. The room went silent. Even the police outside seemed to pause, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. You what? Diane whispered. Mom straightened up, smoothing her hair back with shaking hands. I told him to be a man, to stand up to your father. I said if he showed some strength, some backbone, it'd convince Robert to forgive the loan completely. I just wanted to see some fight in him, some passion. I wanted this family to remember what it means to fight for each other. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. Mom, do you understand what you've done? I saved this family. Mom's voice rose to a shout. You were all just going to let everything fall apart. Diane was going to divorce Travis without even trying to work things out. You barely visit anymore, Elfrida. And Robert just sits in his chair every night like a ghost. We're dying. This family is dying. And I'm the only one who cares enough to do something about it. Travis lowered his gun slightly, staring at Mom in disbelief. You told me you understood. You said you'd help me. I thought you were the only one who actually gave a damn about what I was going through. I do care, Mom said. That's why I knew you needed to show them you're not weak, that you're not just going to roll over and take their judgment. I wanted them to see you fight back. By bringing a gun to a family dinner. I couldn't keep the horror out of my voice. Mom, you could have gotten everyone killed. Don't be so dramatic. I knew Robert would step in if things got out of hand. He always does. That's his job, protecting this family. I just needed to create a situation where we'd all be forced to be honest with each other. Dad slowly lowered his gun, his face gray with shock. Linda, you're not well. You're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years, Mom insisted. I stopped taking those awful pills that made me numb to everything. And once the fog cleared, I could see exactly what was happening. We're becoming strangers. We're losing each other. And I will not let that happen. The police loudspeaker crackled again. We need someone to come to the door. We need to know everyone inside is safe. Dad moved toward the hallway, but Mom blocked his path. Don't you dare open that door. We're not finished here. Get out of my way, Linda. No! We're finally talking. We're finally being real with each other. This is what I wanted. This is what we need. I watched my father's face as understanding dawned. My strong, steady, military-trained father looked at his wife and saw a stranger. Someone whose illness had twisted her love into something dangerous. How long have you been off your medication? He asked quietly. 3 weeks. And I feel wonderful. Clear-headed. Purposeful. You feel manic, I said, my medical knowledge confirming what I was seeing. Mom, you're having an episode. The clarity you feel, it's not real. It's your illness talking. Don't you dare diagnose me. Mom snapped. I'm your mother. I know my own mind. Dad gently moved Mom aside and walked to the front door. He called through it to the police, explaining that the situation was de-escalating, that no one was hurt, that we needed a crisis negotiator, not a tactical team. There was a pause, some radio chatter we couldn't quite hear, then a different voice. This is Sergeant Martinez. I'm a trained crisis negotiator. Can you tell me what's happening inside? Dad explained briefly. Family dispute, weapons secured, one person possibly having a mental health crisis. He gave them my credentials as a former ER nurse, vouching that I could help manage the situation. All right, Sergeant Martinez said. I'm going to approach the door. I'm unarmed. I'm here to help, not to arrest anyone. Can you let me in? I looked at Travis, who still held his gun but seemed deflated. Lost. I said to him, Put it down. Let's let them help us. Travis looked at his wife. Diane nodded, tears streaming down her face. Please, Travis. I can't lose you. Not like this. He finally, slowly, set the gun on the floor. Dad immediately secured it, then did the same with his own weapon, putting both in the kitchen drawer where no one could access them quickly. Mom stood in the center of the dining room, looking confused now, the manic energy draining away. What have I done? She whispered. Oh God, what have I done? The front door opened, and Sergeant Martinez came in, followed by 2 paramedics. He was a calm-faced man in his 40s, and his voice was gentle as he assessed the situation. "All right, folks. Everyone's safe now. That's what matters. Let's sit down and figure out next steps." One of the paramedics approached Mom, who had started crying. "Mom, I'm going to check your vital signs, okay? Just routine." As they evaluated her, I heard a small voice from the hallway. "Mom." Emma stood there, having finally emerged from the bathroom. Her face was streaked with tears, and she ran to me. I scooped her up, holding her tight, breathing in the smell of her shampoo and feeling overwhelming relief that she was safe. "You're okay, baby. You're okay. You were so brave." The paramedic examining Mom spoke quietly to Sergeant Martinez, and I heard enough to understand. Elevated blood pressure, rapid heart rate, disorganized speech patterns, history of anxiety disorder, medication non-compliance. She needed psychiatric evaluation, probably a 72-hour hold. Mom seemed to understand too. As they explained that she needed to go to the hospital, that she needed help, she looked at me with sudden, heartbreaking clarity. "I just didn't want to be alone," she said, her voice small. "I didn't want to lose my family. I thought if I could just bring everyone together, make you all talk, we could be close again. Like we used to be." I went to her, Emma still in my arms. "We're not going anywhere, Mom. But you need help, real help, and we'll support you through it. But you have to go with them now." She nodded. Docile now. The fight gone out of her. As the paramedics prepared to transport her, she touched Emma's cheek. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. Grandma's not feeling well. But I'm going to get better. Okay." Emma nodded solemnly. "Okay, Grandma." After they left with Mom, police took statements from everyone. Travis explained about the gun, about his intentions, about Mom's phone call manipulating him. Diane corroborated his story, adding details about their marital problems and the pressure from my parents. Dad admitted to confronting Travis about the loan, to his own role in making Travis feel inadequate. By the time the police finished and left, assuring us that given the circumstances and everyone's cooperation, no charges would be filed, it was past midnight. The dining room looked like a crime scene. Overturned chairs, water stains, the bullet hole in the ceiling, cold pot roast congealing on plates. Emma had fallen asleep on the couch. Travis and Diane sat together, not quite touching but not completely separate either. And Dad stood at the window, staring out at nothing. The silence stretched until I couldn't bear it anymore. "Someone should say something." Dad turned from the window. His face looked older than it had that morning. "I need to tell you all something I should have said a long time ago." And then my father, my strong, silent father, who had survived war and raised 2 daughters and always seemed so solid, so certain, broke down crying. I'd never seen my father cry, not when his own father died, not when I graduated medical school, not ever. But now tears ran down his weathered face as he stood in that destroyed dining room, and I didn't know what to do. "Dad." I moved toward him, but he held up his hand. "Let me say this. I need to say this before I lose my nerve." He took a shaky breath. "I've been having an affair. For 8 months. A woman named Jennifer. I met her at the VA office where I volunteer." Diane gasped. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "Your mother and I, we stopped being married years ago. We've been roommates. Strangers sharing a house. But I didn't have the courage to face it, to deal with it, so I found comfort somewhere else." He looked at us, his eyes red. "And because I was too much of a coward, to be honest, because I was so consumed with guilt about the affair, I ignored all the signs that your mother was getting worse. I saw her becoming more controlling, more desperate, but I told myself it was just stress. I gave her whatever she wanted, thinking if I was nice enough at home, my betrayal wouldn't matter. I enabled her. I let her spiral because I was too wrapped up in my own shame to see what was really happening." "Did Mom know?" Diane asked, her voice barely audible. "I don't know. I've been careful, but Linda's always been perceptive. Maybe she sensed it. Maybe that's part of why she stopped her medication, why she became so fixated on keeping this family together. Because she could feel it all falling apart. I sank into a chair, trying to process this. My parents' marriage, which Id thought was solid if somewhat distant, had been a lie. My father, who Id admired for his integrity, had been living a double life. I'm not telling you this to make excuses, Dad continued. I'm telling you because tonight proved something. Secrets destroy families faster than truth ever could. If it'd been honest months ago, if it'd faced my problems with your mother instead of running from them, maybe we could have gotten her help before it came to this. Travis, who had been silent through all of this, finally spoke. My parents did the same thing. Hid their financial problems until they lost everything. That's why I couldn't tell anyone when I lost my job. Why I couldn't admit I was failing. I saw what shame and silence did to them, and then I went and did the exact same thing. We're all guilty of it, Diane said quietly. I knew Travis was struggling. I knew Mom was acting strange. I knew our marriage was dying. But it was easier to scroll through my phone and pretend everything was fine than to deal with any of it. I thought about my own role in this. How I'd been so busy with work and raising Emma that I'd treated these monthly dinners as an obligation, something to get through. How I'd noticed Mom's increasing anxiety but told myself it wasn't my problem. How I'd seen the strain in Deanna's face every time she looked at Travis but never asked if she was okay. Emma stirred on the couch, and I went to check on her. She was still sleeping, peaceful despite everything that had happened. In her hand was the note she'd written, crumpled but still legible. "Call 911. Your daughter saved us all," Travis said, following my gaze. If she hadn't been brave enough to tell you what she heard, I don't know what would have happened tonight. I was so angry, so hurt. When your dad stood up with that gun, I could have done something stupid. Someone could have died. But no one did, I said. Emma was brave, and we all made choices tonight. Hard choices, to be honest, even when it hurt. That counts for something. Dad sat down heavily in his chair. I'm going to tell your mother about the affair. When she's stable enough to hear it. And I'm going to file for divorce. Our marriage has been over for a long time. We were just too stubborn or scared to admit it. What about Jennifer? Diane asked. I ended it 3 hours before I came to this dinner, because even if my marriage is over, what I did was wrong. I don't get to build something new on a foundation of lies. We sat in silence for a while, the weight of all these revelations settling over us. The perfect family I'd thought we were had been a performance, and tonight the curtain had fallen. Everything was exposed, raw, real. What happens now? I asked. Now, Dad said. We tell the truth. No more pretending. No more secrets. Whatever this family becomes next, it has to be built on honesty. Even if honesty is ugly. Even if it hurts. Travis pulled out an envelope from his jacket and set it on the table. The $15,000. It's all there. I sold everything I could. I don't want this debt hanging over us anymore. Dad looked at the envelope but didn't touch it. Keep it. You're going to need it for lawyer fees. For starting over. We had a deal. The deal was based on me treating you with dignity and respect, which I failed to do. Consider the debt forgiven. Consider it my apology for being a judgmental bastard who valued pride over people. Travis' eyes filled with tears. I don't know what to say. Say you'll get some help. Therapy, both of you. Dad looked at Diane. Your mother isn't the only one who needs it. We all do. We're all broken in different ways and we can't fix each other. We need professionals. Diane nodded. Travis and I have already decided to separate, at least for now. We need time apart to figure out who we are individually, before we can know if there's an us worth saving. I'm moving out next week, Travis said. Staying with a friend. We're going to try to do this divorce, if that's what it becomes, with honesty and kindness. No lawyers, unless we absolutely need them. No fighting. Just two people who tried and failed and are trying to fail gracefully. I looked at my sister and saw someone I'd underestimated. She wasn't the shallow phone scroller I'd dismissed her as. She was someone trying to navigate impossible choices with whatever courage she could find. I'm proud of you, I told her. She smiled sadly. Don't be proud yet. Ask me again in 6 months when I'm living in a studio apartment eating ramen and crying over wedding photos. I'll bring the wine, I promised. Dad stood up. I should go. I can't stay in this house tonight. Too many ghosts. Where will you go? I asked. My brother's place. Has got a spare room. He looked around the dining room one last time. We'll have to sell this house. Split the proceeds with your mother. She'll need money for treatment, for a place of her own when she's ready. End of an era, Diane said. End of a lie, Dad corrected. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. After Dad left, I helped Travis and Diane clean up the worst of the mess. We worked in companionable silence, and there was something healing about it. Putting things back in order, even though we all knew nothing would ever really be the same. When they finally left, I carried Emma to my car. She woke up briefly as I buckled her in. Is Grandma going to be okay? She asked. I don't know, sweetheart. But she's getting help. That's what matters. Are you okay, Mom? I thought about lying, about giving her the easy answer. But tonight had taught me the cost of easy answers. I'm sad, and confused, and a little scared about what comes next. But I'm also grateful, because you were brave enough to tell the truth when it mattered most. You reminded me that honesty, even when it's scary, is always worth it. Emma snuggled against her seatbelt. I love you, Mommy. I love you too, baby. So much. As I drove home through empty streets, I thought about that note. Call 911. 2 words that had shattered a family's facade and maybe, just maybe, given us a chance to build something real from the pieces. 3 weeks passed like a strange dream. I took leave from work to help manage the aftermath. Diane and I started going to family therapy together, trying to unpack decades of dysfunction. Travis moved into his friend's spare bedroom and started seeing a counselor who specialized in men's mental health. Dad filed for divorce and rented a small apartment across town, spending his days volunteering at the VA and his evenings, I suspected, wrestling with regret. And Emma started therapy too. Her counselor, a kind woman named Dr. Sarah Patterson, specialized in childhood trauma. Emma met with her twice a week and came home each time with homework assignments, drawing pictures of her feelings, writing in her bravery journal, practicing deep breathing when scary thoughts came. Tonight I was sitting on the floor of our living room, helping Emma paste photos and drawings into that journal, when she showed me the page she'd been working on. At the center was the note from that dinner, carefully taped down and labeled, "The day I was brave." Can we talk about that night? Emma asked. We'd discussed it in general terms, but it'd been waiting for her to be ready for details. Of course, honey. What do you want to know? Was Uncle Travis really going to hurt people? I chose my words carefully. Uncle Travis was in pain. So much pain that he made some bad choices about how to handle it. But I don't think he wanted to hurt anyone. I think he just wanted to feel strong when he felt so weak. And Grandma made him bring the gun. Grandma was sick. Her brain wasn't working right because she stopped taking her medicine. She thought she was helping, but she was actually making everything more dangerous. That's why she's in the hospital now, getting the help she needs. When can we see her? Soon. The doctors say she's doing better. She's taking her medicine again, and she's talking to therapists about why she did what she did. Emma was quiet for a moment, coloring carefully around the edges of the note. I was so scared. I thought everyone was going to die. I know, baby. That must have been terrifying. But you stayed calm. How did you do that? I thought about it. I've had training for emergencies. But mostly, I stayed calm because I knew panicking wouldn't help you or anyone else. Sometimes being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing the right thing anyway. Just like you did when you wrote that note. Dr. Sarah says I helped save everyone. You did. You absolutely did. The doorbell rang, surprising us both. Through the peephole, I saw Diane. She looked different, lighter somehow. Her hair was cut short in a style I'd never seen her wear before, and there was something new in the way she carried herself. Hey, she said when I opened the door. Is this a bad time? Never for you. Come in. She hugged Emma, admired the journal, and we sat together while Emma finished her page. When my daughter went to her room to play, Diane and I made tea in the kitchen. You look good, I told her. I feel good. Weird to say that after everything, but it's true. Travis and I finalized the divorce paperwork yesterday. It was the most civil, honest conversation we've had in years. We're going to co-parent our future, whatever that means. Stay friends if we can. How are you really doing with it? Some days I'm okay. Some days I'm not. But I got my own apartment last week. Small place, nothing fancy, but it's mine. No one's expectations but my own. I started a new job at a marketing firm. And I'm in therapy, working through a lot of stuff about why I stayed so long in a marriage that wasn't working. Why I let mom and dad's opinions matter more than my own happiness. I'm glad you're taking care of yourself. I learned from watching you. You've always been so independent, so sure of yourself. I used to resent it, honestly. But now, I'm grateful for the example. I laughed. If you could see inside my head, you'd know I'm figuring it out as I go like everyone else. I'm in therapy too now. Turns out watching your family implode brings up some stuff. Diane smiled. We're all works in progress. Speaking of progress, I'm visiting Mom tomorrow. At the facility. Want to come? She hesitated. I'm not sure I'm ready. That's okay, no pressure. But if you change your mind, the offer stands. The next afternoon, I drove to the Riverside Psychiatric Care Center, where Mom had been transferred after her initial evaluation. The facility was nicer than it expected. Lots of windows, gardens visible from the common areas, artwork on the walls. Not the institutional nightmare movies had taught me to expect. A nurse led me to a visiting room where Mom waited. She looked transformed. Her hair was brushed and styled. She wore a simple blue sweater and jeans, not the hospital gown I'd half expected. Her eyes were clear, really clear, in a way I hadn't seen them in years. Elfrida. She stood up, uncertain. Thank you for coming. We sat across from each other at a small table. For a moment, neither of us knew what to say. You look better, Mom. I feel better. The medication is working again. And I've been in therapy every day. Individual sessions, group sessions. It's exhausting but necessary. She folded her hands on the table. I need to apologize to you. For everything. For that night. For manipulating Travis. For putting Emma in danger. For losing touch with reality so badly that I nearly destroyed our family. I accept your apology. But Mom, I need to understand something. The doctors said you knew about Dad's affair. Is that true? Her face crumpled, but she held herself together. I've known for 7 months. I found hotel receipts first. Then I saw a text on his phone. I hired a private investigator, got photos, everything. Her name is Jennifer Crawford. She's 43, works as a counselor at the VA. Divorced, no kids. Very pretty. Why didn't you say anything? Pride at first. Shame. I thought if I was just better, more perfect, he'd come back to me. But as time went on, I started getting angrier. I stopped taking my medication because I wanted to feel the rage fully. And I started planning. My blood went cold. Planning what? That dinner. It wasn't about helping Diane and Travis. It was about creating a situation where Robert would look unstable and dangerous, where he'd pull a gun in front of everyone. She met my eyes, and I saw genuine remorse there. I was going to use it in the divorce, claim I was afraid of him, get everything, the house, the savings, everything. And he'd look like the bad guy, the violent veteran who threatened his family. I sat back, stunned. You manipulated Travis, put us all in danger, just to set up Dad. I know how it sounds. Believe me, in therapy, I've had to face how calculated and cruel it was. But at the time, through the lens of my illness and my hurt, it made perfect sense. I was the wronged wife getting justice. I was protecting myself. She wiped her eyes. Then Emma got scared and you called the police. And everything spun out of control. Travis actually pointed a gun. Robert could have shot him. People could have died. And it hit me what it'd done. But by then it was too late to take it back. I didn't know what to feel. Anger, yes. But also pity for this woman who'd been so consumed by pain that she'd become dangerous. The therapist here helped me see that I've been struggling for years, Mom continued. Long before Dad's affair. I've built my entire identity around being the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the keeper of the perfect family. When cracks started showing, when you girls grew up and didn't need me anymore, when Robert drifted away, I didn't know who I was. The anxiety medication helped, But when I stopped taking it, all those fears and insecurities came flooding back 100 times stronger. What happens now? With your treatment, it'll be here for at least another 3 months. Long-term inpatient treatment. When I leave, I'll move to a supervised living facility for a while. Eventually, my own apartment. Your father and I are getting divorced. Has been honest about everything, including ending his affair and taking responsibility for his part in our marriage failing. I appreciate that, even though it still hurts. Do you still love him? She thought about it. I love who he was, or who I thought he was. But we've both changed. We grew into different people who want different lives. Maybe we never should have gotten married in the first place. We were so young and I was pregnant with you. We did what people did back then. Made it work because we were supposed to. I didn't know you were pregnant when you got married. 4 months along. Scared to death. Your father did the honorable thing. We had a small wedding and 5 months later you were born. Perfect timing, or so everyone pretended. But we never really chose each other. We were pushed together by circumstances and stayed together out of obligation. She smiled sadly. You know what's funny? I've spent 40 years trying to keep this family together, and it turns out we were never actually together in the first place. We were just performing togetherness. I reached across the table and took her hand. We can build something real now. It won't be what it was, but maybe it can be better, more honest. Can you forgive me? She asked. I know I don't deserve it. Can you? I don't know yet. Forgiveness takes time. But I can try. For both our sakes. That's all I can ask for. We talked for another hour about her treatment, about Emma, about practical matters like the house sale and dividing possessions. When visiting time ended, Mom hugged me tight. Thank you for not giving up on me. She whispered. Thank you for getting help. I whispered back. Driving home, I called Diane and told her everything. Her reaction was immediate fury, followed by a kind of exhausted acceptance. I don't know whether to admire her for the plan or be horrified by it, Diane said. Both, I think. She's both victim and villain, hurt and hurtful. That's the complicated truth. God, I hate complicated truths. I want clear good guys and bad guys. Me too, but life doesn't work that way. Are you going to tell Dad about her plan? I thought about it. Eventually, but not yet, has dealing with enough guilt already. Let him work through his own stuff before adding hers to it. When did you get so wise? About 3 weeks ago, when my 9-year-old daughter handed me a note that said call 911 and forced me to grow up. Diane laughed, and it felt good to hear her laugh. We're going to be okay, aren't we? Eventually. Yeah, I think we are. 6 months later, on a Saturday afternoon that felt like peace, I stood in my kitchen with Emma, teaching her how to make chocolate chip cookies from scratch. The recipe was one I'd learned from my grandmother, Mom's mother, who'd died when I was 16. I'd forgotten about it until recently, when I'd been sorting through old recipe cards Mom had given me. How many chocolate chips should I add? Emma asked, hovering over the bowl with a measuring cup. The recipe says 1 cup, but Grandma always said you can't have too many chocolate chips. I like Grandma's rule better. We added extra chocolate chips, and Emma stirred the dough with intense concentration. Shed grown in the past 6 months. Not just physically, though Shed shot up 2 inches, but emotionally. Dr. Patterson said she was processing the trauma remarkably well, using her bravery journal and the coping skills they'd practiced together. The doorbell rang. That'll be Aunt Diane, I said. Can you finish mixing while I get it? Emma nodded, and I went to the door. Diane stood there with a bottle of wine and a bag of takeout from the Thai place we both loved. I know we said homemade dinner, but I got swamped at work, she said apologetically. Thai food counts as homemade somewhere, I said, taking the bag. Come in. Shed changed even more in 6 months. The short haircut suited her, and there was a confidence in the way she moved that hadn't been there before. Her apartment, which I'd visited several times, reflected this new Diane. Bright colors, artwork Shed chosen herself, books on subjects she actually cared about, rather than what looked impressive on a shelf. "How's the new account going?" I asked as we set out plates. "Exhausting and exhilarating. They want everything yesterday, but I love the challenge. And my boss actually listens to my ideas, which is revolutionary." She poured wine for both of us. "How's the hospital?" "Busy. I picked up extra shifts this month, saving for Emma's summer camp. I'd returned to work 2 months ago, feeling ready to engage with the world again." "Oh, and Travis called yesterday." "He did." Diane looked surprised. "About what?" "He wanted to know if it was okay to send Emma a birthday present. Her 10th is coming up, and he said he didn't want to overstep, but wanted her to know he thinks about her." "That's sweet." "What did you say?" I said yes, obviously. Has been in therapy, dealing with his stuff. The least we can do is let him be part of Emma's life in small ways. "He got a new job," Diane said. "Project manager at a tech startup. He texted me about it last week. Sounds like he's doing well. Are you two back in touch?" "A little. Just friendly check-ins. No romance, nothing like that. But we spent 5 years together. Seems silly to pretend that meant nothing just because the marriage didn't work out." The doorbell rang again. This time it was Dad. Head aged visibly in 6 months, but there was something lighter about him too. The weight of secrets lifted. "Maybe. Smells good in here," he said, hugging Emma when she ran to greet him. "We're making cookies, Grandpa, with extra chocolate chips. The only way to make them," he said solemnly. We settled in the living room with our Thai food, Emma happily eating pad Thai while the adults talked. Dad had sold the house and split the proceeds with Mom as promised. Had given both Diane and me a portion of his half, saying he didn't need much and wanted us to have it. "How's your mom doing?" he asked, directing the question at both of us. "I visited her yesterday," Diane said. She'd been visiting Mom weekly at the supervised living facility where she'd moved 2 months ago. "She's doing really well. Her apartment is nice. Small but comfortable. She's working part-time at a bookstore, which she loves, and she's still taking her medication." Dad asked. "Every day. She has a whole system with reminders and check-ins with her therapist. She's determined not to backslide. I'd visited Mom the week before. We'd had coffee at a cafe near her apartment and talked about everything and nothing. She'd asked about Emma, about my work, about life. She'd apologized again, the 100th time at least, and I'd told her she could stop apologizing. We were moving forward, not staying stuck in the past." "Is she coming today?" Dad asked. "She said she'd try to stop by around 4. I said, "If that's okay with you?" Dad nodded slowly. "It's fine. We're adults. We can be civil for our daughter's sake." The last time my parents had been in the same room was in divorce court 3 months ago. Mom praised them extravagantly, and soon we were all sitting together in my living room, eating cookies and drinking tea and coffee, being carefully pleasant to each other. It wasn't like the old family dinners, forced and performative. It was smaller, quieter, real. We talked about work and weather and a movie Diane had seen. We avoided anything too deep or painful. Baby steps toward something that might someday feel normal. After a while, Travis called Diane to ask about some paperwork, and she put him on speakerphone. He greeted everyone, mentioned his new job, thanked Dad again for forgiving the loan. "I couldn't have started over without that," Travis said. "You gave me a second chance when I didn't deserve it." "We all deserve second chances," Dad said. "I should know. I've needed a few myself." After the call ended, I looked around at my family. Broken, scattered, rearranged. Nothing like I'd thought we were 6 months ago. But real in a way we'd never been before. "I was thinking," I said, "about that night, the dinner that changed everything. And I realized something." "What's that?" Mom asked. "For years, we all worked so hard to look perfect. Perfect family, perfect dinners, perfect lives. We smiled and pretended and hid anything that didn't fit the image. And the weight of all that pretending nearly destroyed us." "It did destroy us," Diane said. "The old us, anyway. But maybe that needed to happen," I continued. "Maybe we needed to break completely before we could rebuild honestly." Emma's note. Those 2 words, "Call 911," They didn't just call for help that night. They called out our whole way of being as a family, all the secrets and lies and performances. Everything we'd been hiding came out that night, and it was terrible and painful, but necessary, Dad spoke quietly. I've thought about this a lot, about how differently I would do things if I could go back. But I can't. None of us can. We can only go forward. And I think somehow we're doing that. Not perfectly, but honestly. And that has to count for something. Mom wiped her eyes. I put everyone in danger. I nearly destroyed all of you because I couldn't face my own pain honestly. I'm so sorry. I'll be sorry for the rest of my life. We know, Mom, I said. And we're working on forgiving you? Just like you're working on forgiving Dad. Just like we're all working on forgiving ourselves for the ways we contributed to the dysfunction. Emma, who'd been listening more than participating, suddenly spoke up. Doctor, Patterson says families don't have to be perfect. They just have to keep trying to be better. Out of the mouths of children. Your Dr. Patterson is very wise, Mom said, smiling at her granddaughter. And so are you, sweetheart. You saved us all by being brave enough to tell the truth. I was really scared, Emma admitted. But Mom always says that being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the right thing even when you are scared. I do say that, I confirmed, pulling her close. And you, my girl, are the bravest person I know. As the afternoon turned to evening, we talked more freely. About therapy insights, about lessons learned, about mistakes owned. Dad admitted had been avoiding conflict his whole life, choosing comfort over honesty until the lie became unbearable. Mom talked about learning to build an identity outside of being a wife and mother, discovering interests she'd suppressed for decades. Diane shared her journey of learning to value her own opinions over others' approval. And I talked about control, about how my need to keep everything together and everyone safe had kept me from seeing when people needed help rather than management. We were all playing roles, Diane said. Perfect wife, strong father, responsible older daughter, dutiful younger daughter, and the roles were killing us. What are we now? Emma asked. We looked at each other, this collection of flawed, healing people who'd once been a family and were trying to figure out what we were becoming. We're honest, I said finally. We're works in progress. We're people who broke and are putting ourselves back together, piece by piece. And that's enough. That's more than enough. Mom reached across and squeezed my hand. Thank you for not giving up on me. On all of us, thank you for getting help, I said. Thank you for choosing to heal instead of hiding. Dad cleared his throat, emotional. I'm proud of all of us, for surviving, for being here, for trying. As everyone prepared to leave, I walked each person to the door. I hugged Diane extra tight, this sister who'd found herself in the rubble of her marriage and become someone stronger. I told Dad I was proud of the man he was becoming, not the man he'd pretended to be. And I told Mom I loved her, despite everything, because of everything. After they'd all left, I helped Emma get ready for bed. She brushed her teeth and changed into pajamas, then climbed under her covers with her favorite stuffed animal, a bear named Mr. Pickles. Mom, she asked as I tucked her in, if something scary happens again, can I still tell you? Always. I promised. I will always listen. I will always believe you. I will always help. That's my job as your mom, and it's a job I take very seriously. Even if telling the truth makes people upset, especially then. Truth might hurt, but it's the only thing that really heals. She thought about that. I'm glad I wrote the note, even though it was scary. Me too, baby. Me too. After Emma fell asleep, I sat in my living room with a cup of tea and my own journal. I'd started keeping one after Emma began hers, finding value in writing down thoughts and feelings rather than letting them circle endlessly in my head. I wrote about the day, about seeing my family together and separate and somehow both at once. I wrote about forgiveness and healing, and the long road we still had ahead of us. And then I wrote the lesson that had been forming in my heart for 6 months, crystallizing into something I finally understood. I learned that the bravest thing a family can do isn't staying together at all costs. It's being honest at all costs. I learned that children see truth even when adults hide it, and their courage can save everyone. I learned that mental illness is real, that hurt people. But healing is possible when we stop pretending. I learned that perfect family dinners mean nothing if the family isn't real. And I learned that a note under the table, 2 words from a frightened child, can be the beginning of everything good and true. Love isn't performance. Love is showing up honestly, even when it's ugly, and choosing to heal together. I closed the journal and looked at the framed picture on my bookshelf. Not the one from that last perfect family dinner, which I'd packed away somewhere. This was a new one, taken just today on my phone. All of us in my living room, not posed, not perfect. Dad was mid-laugh at something Diane had said. Mom was smiling softly, real joy mixed with real sadness. Diane was rolling her eyes in that way she had. Emma was showing off a cookie. And I was there too, captured by the timer, looking at my family with eyes that finally saw clearly. We weren't perfect. We'd never be perfect, but we were real. And in the end, that's all that mattered. I thought about Emma's question, what are we now? And I thought I finally had the answer. We were a family learning that broken things, honestly acknowledged and carefully tended, could become something even stronger than they were before. We were people who'd walked through fire and come out scarred but alive. We were proof that truth, no matter how painful, was always better than comfortable lies. And we were going to be okay. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. Because we'd finally stopped pretending and started healing. And that made all the difference. I turned off the lights and went to bed, grateful for that note, for Emma's courage, for the crisis that had forced us all to become real. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new steps on the long road to recovery. But tonight I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Real, honest, hard-earned hope. And that was everything. So let me ask you something. Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and telling the truth in your family? What did you choose and what happened? Share your story in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, if it reminded you that honesty and healing are always possible, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about real people facing real challenges and finding their way through. And share this with someone who needs to hear that families don't have to be perfect to be good. They just have to be real. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope you find the courage to write your own note when it matters most, and the strength to answer honestly when someone you love writes one to you. Until next time, remember, being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the right thing anyway. Take care of yourselves and each other.